Welcome to the Boulevard Shop. What you are here to see today is a collection of men, of black men, of Christian black men, church black men that are deeply embedded into our community. And we want to today take a look at talking through those things that affect us that we only talk about with each other. Barbershops, where we are right now, are like the sanctuary for black men. It's our safe zone, it's our safe spot. It's the place where we can be us. It's the place where we can say things that we may not say to our wives. And so today we're gonna get a look into what of these perspectives that we may share with each other. And we've got a great group of young men here. We represent being born in the 80s, the 70s, and the 50s. We've seen all kinds of things in our life. And we wanna give you guys a great insight into what it is like to be a black man in America, a black man in the South. And with that, I think we should do some introductions. My name is Mark Yancy. This production is on behalf of the One Love Marriage Ministry. And I will pass it to my left for Andy, you to introduce yourself.
My name is Andy Rousseau. I've been with Mississippi Boulevard for 20 years. I'm one of the life group leader and a representative of the marriage ministry at Mississippi Boulevard.
So my name is Terrance Newsome. I'm a member of the young adult ministry as well as the marriage ministry. And man, I'm here to just get as much wisdom as possible.
My name is Simmons, and I'm a member of the Judah Committee as well as the One Love, and there's also Simmons Bible Study Group.
And I'm Jason Lawrence Turner. I'm the senior pastor, and I'm like Terrance. I'm here to glean as much wisdom from Brother Simmons.
Well, all right. We got the five of us here, again, representing the One Love Marriage Ministry. If you're at the church and you want to be part of fellow married couples and to get good wisdom and insight, we definitely want you to join. This is the first of many other recordings to come. So we'll just get right into it. Okay. We don't have to waste any time. Let's go for it. So the title of this today was Black Men Discussing What It Means to Be Who We Are. Okay. And then there's a surprise element to this because obviously it's a marriage ministry, but you don't see our wives here today. But they have, I guess, bombed us with some questions that we are not aware of. And every so often we will pull a question out to get the women's perspective on what they want us to answer. So we'll just get started. The first subject is behind enemy lines, life outside of home, our everyday experience as black men. I'll tee it up and then we'll get perspectives from Terrance, Bobby, Pastor, and Andy. So a typical day in the life of a black man, you wake up in your home, you get dressed, you go outside, and if you work in a corporate setting, you may not see anybody that looks just like you. So you're on the outside looking in. You may stop at the gas station on the way home, and depending on what part of town you stop in, you may actually have to watch out for other people that look just like you. Then you may go home, and you may be, you're definitely gonna be the only man in your home, and it can produce a feeling like everywhere I go except for in my home, I'm behind enemy lines. So does that concept resonate with you all, and would any of you like to share what that means to you?
Yeah. Okay, so as far as the concept of just being behind enemy lines, man, it goes back to survival of the fittest sometimes. Sometimes when I walk outside my door, the things that we're facing, especially in 2021, just coming out of a pandemic, man, there are just so many things that we approach with. I mean, heck, an experience that I've had just getting out of my house. I like to go for a run in some mornings, where I have one of my neighbors who would see me going for a run, and we see each other often. She goes out to actually take her dog out for a walk, and there's a moment in time where she walks or moves gingerly into her house to avoid me. And I wonder and I question myself, have I did anything, or is it just because of who I am or what I may betray, man? So yeah, just as far as behind enemy lines, man, I think that I'm always looked at as the enemy from time to time, man.
Yeah. Anybody?
Yeah, I think that you hit a good point there, especially the point about the neighbors or someone in the street. I get up in the morning around 5 o'clock in the morning and I go walking, and there are some folks across in a different neighborhood. They walk our neighborhood because it's a nice, easy walk, trails and everything there. Now I live in this neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay. They're visiting from another neighborhood. But as we walk and we meet each other, they would do a shift to the other side of the street. And I just smile and wave at them, good morning and everything like that. But that's in a daily thing, you walk. I live in the neighborhood, okay? But yet and still, you're visiting. I could take you down and point to my house. You have to go across the street. And the reason I know that they're across the street is because during my jog, I end up behind them as they go across back to their home. And that enemy line thing, sometimes it makes you feel like you are the enemy.
Yes.
When in essence you're not. But it's just part of life. It's just something that you would have to adjust to. You cannot let it get within you because it'll start creating that hate. And with hate within you, that would take you down quicker than a sword or a knife.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think it's James Baldwin who said, to be black and relatively conscious is to be in a state of constant rage. And so it is not just a struggle, but I think as Terrance put it, as Brother Simmons put it as well, it is as if we are the enemy, as if we are the threat. And be sure you're not intelligent and can articulate yourself.
Wow.
You're even more of a threat to the community for whatever reason. And so it is a struggle when you leave the home to navigate all that, to sometimes have to code switch to make other people feel comfortable.
Well, I'll take it to the standpoint of corporate America, because I spent over 20 years in corporate America, and me being a black man, most of the time I'm the only black man in my group, or sometimes certain meetings, you're the only black man when you're surrounded by different people, different ethnicity, different color as well. A lot of time, you walk in the hall, they have not seen you, they'll stop you and say, do you have an ID? Like as if, I don't qualify to be in the hallway, I'm not a stranger. And I'm like, I do, but one thing I usually do is to show me your ID. Just as if it's good for me to ask me what my ID, I'm gonna ask you what's your ID. So, and it gets a lot more worse when you're predominantly in a building that's like predominantly white, and you coming in, and because I was IT, so I have a lot of access to a whole lot of buildings. So when you walk and they look at you funny, like, you're a threat.
Right.
So, that's one thing, I had to navigate for over 20 years of my life.
So we got all different experiences, but they're the same. We moved into our house, my wife and I, my family, my daughter, son, and we had a neighbor to move in the neighborhood, family. And I was like, I'm gonna go over here and meet him. My wife was like, you might want to take the dog with you, like the Boston Terrier, not no pit bull, small, little bitty dog, cute. And she was like, maybe you should carry him, you know what I mean? And then that way, she's like, forget it, I'm just gonna go with you. And then there's been times where like we've gotten packages delivered that are the wrong package to our house. And like she's nervous, and it's got me nervous because like she's like, well, what if they think you stealing the package when you're not dropping it off, you're stealing it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so now you gotta not do that.
Yeah.
And then, I've gotten pulled over in my neighborhood, like at the stop sign up for my house. So the neighbor seeing me, looking, and you thinking to yourself, like, this is an awful experience.
Yes.
But I am kind of happy they're here to see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if they pulled me over somewhere secluded,
Right.
then what? So like, but think of like the dichotomy of that. I'm happy that I'm being embarrassed because at least this probably won't end the wrong way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like it's a troubling thing, And then again, you got, you know, what we're gonna call the wisest member of the group, Bobby, who has had this experience, and then us being in different decades,
38
born and had
years.
this experience, and here we are.
Yeah.
So that gives us a moment to transition into the next question, which is, what about home base if you behind enemy lines all the time? And so the next subject is the importance of the home front, stability, and affirmation. And what we mean by that now, just you know, we got to be brutally honest. Like, you know, I don't think that there's a wife that would say that, or would admit that I don't need a certain kind of attention, or I don't need for you to pay attention to me. Just like I think a man, if they say I don't need affirmation that I'm worth something, if he's saying that, I don't think he understands, you know, what it is that you really need. So with that being said, what does the importance of having a settled home mean to a black man in America, and America in the South in particular?
Well,
Go
yeah.
ahead. Go for it.
I'll just start, not really from my own wisdom or knowledge base. My dad always said to me and my brothers when we were coming up that life is like a boxing match. And when the bell rings at the end of the round, you want to be able to go back to your corner and get refreshment and rest so you can go back out and fight another round. And that to me really speaks of the importance of having a happy home, right? You know, keeping your wife happy, right? Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah.
Peace, and really having that Christian foundation, like standing on those principles at home. And then when you bring kids into the equation, it's about living that in such a way so that, you know, they can not only hear the gospel from you, they can see that as being lived between their mom and their dad.
Definitely a good point.
Yeah, that's a good point there, and that happy wife, happy life. That's real true there, because
That's real.
you don't want to be one of those that's sitting on the corner of the roof, you know, instead of dealing with a quarreling wife. You know, that's a
And you're right.
Proverbs type of thing.
That's the
but-
word right there.
Yeah.
That's the word.
So the thing I found in our soon to be 42 years of marriage is that
Wow.
the key to it, you got to show one that you care. You know, you got to listen. You listen to understand and not listen to hear. Because when you listen to hear, basically you're just looking for a point that you can counter.
Yeah.
Okay? When you listen to understand, you'll hear within her, you know, what it is that's truly causing, you know, this type of
English.
questioning or this
Yeah.
type of discussion. And in that, once you understand where she's coming from, the whole argument or the whole discussion that you hear today may have been something that started back a month or so ago. And you just let her talk constantly, and she'll get back to that point. But when she does, you acknowledge it.
Yes.
And if it's your problem, your mistake, accept it, and you move on. And that in itself, if you keep her happy, that would help you deal with the corporate world when you come in at the evening after a meeting wherein you're the only black person in a conference room, which I've been, you know, lots of times,
Yes.
with electrical engineering degree and in technology and in
Yes.
management there, that's where you will be.
Yes.
Yep.
So you come home to a happy wife, and they tend to give you that reassurance
Yes.
that you're not out there by yourself,
Yes.
that you're not fighting this battle alone. So,
Amen to
I
that.
like it.
Amen to
For me, I think when you have a peaceful home, you sleep better. So
Sleep is important, bro.
sleep is important.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be like have a quiet wife. You're about to settle down there and say, "Well, we need to talk." Or you know, you get up in the morning, you know, you have that sour face. To me, I think having a peaceful home, it makes a whole lot better to, like I said, sleeping and, you know, to enjoy coming home. Because if your home is not peaceful, you're not getting peace when you leave home. So you're still in a state of chaos because you're fighting out there. Now you come home, you got another fight. So eventually you're gonna wear out, mentally, physically, spiritually.
Yes. And then for myself, man, honestly, I think back to some of the things that I was taught as a young as a young child growing up is to keep your house in order. And that was just something that was said to me that resonated, that you want your home in order. And as a black man growing up, you think about spiritually, physically, financially, you have to make sure that your home is in order, and you're also affirming that your family, you're showing your family that you can support them in their needs, because it all boils down to your legacy. I mean, that's really what we're headed here, and it's not just your legacy for your family, but it's the legacy for our nation, our people,
Yes.
our livelihood, and everything that's just comprised within being myself, a black man in America today.
Yeah.
So, awesome perspectives. And I notice as we talk, like black men tend to talk like from the standpoint of a product that we're trying to put out. Like you said, legacy. You said trying to keep sleep and peace. You know, you said happy wife, happy life. You talked about the kids and the foundation. But what we didn't say is what we need out of that. You know, and I know you said assurance, but sometimes, and I'll just say it, you know, as a man, you talk, you know, and especially, you know, you born in the 70s, 80s, and before, you talk like you don't show your feelings.
Yes.
You know, when you're in the house, like the kids' feelings come first, your wife's feeling come first. You know, maybe the dog's feeling come first. You know, and you get to a point to where, you know, you like, sometimes I just want to say, like, this is bothering me, or this is this. And so now when I see other black men, I tend to just be like, hey man, like let's talk, like what we're doing here today, which normally we don't do it with cameras. But, you know, how do we, you know, we hear like the term self-care all the time, but how do we deal with the fact that we're behind enemy lines, we fit out instead of fitting in, because we don't fit in anywhere. And then, you know, you're trying to make sure your home is stable. But how do we get the affirmation that we need for ourselves, for our feelings being valid?
I tell you what, when you surround yourself with other men with like ideas, like mine, like we're doing here, those type of discussion would come, and you would hear from those just in your regular discussion that you're not the only one that's, you know, dealing with those type of issue or those type of problem. And you pick up on, well, how did you go about dealing with this? You know, and you take those type of thing and you use that, you know, to your advantage where it's necessary. But I think the biggest thing is to have yourself surrounded with a group of men that you can actually talk to, that have an understanding of what it is that you're going through. It's not that you're looking for someone to give you an answer. You go home and this is what you do. The affirmation that you get, you'll find out that it's there all along. It's just that you probably weren't aware. Okay, you're not seeing from the eyes that a person that's in that position would see. You know, and I guarantee you, once you start talking like we're talking among ourselves, you'll hear the same exact things that you're probably dealing with and say, well, wow, I knew that. I was dealing with that. And life goes on, but you got to have some sort of confirmation from someone other than, you know, maybe your spouse or something like that. Just talk among men.
Follow up to what he said. One important thing we have at Mr. Boulevard is the live group, and we just happen to have a men's only live group that meets Saturday morning at 6:30. And one of the things that we do, make sure every brother in the car affirm themselves, hey, say your name and I am somebody, I am a person. And, you know, to follow up, just, you know, we talk a variety of issues, and you'd be amazed, like we talk about our wife, the same thing, the corporate life, racism, you know, sexism, you know, a variety of issues depending on what the study that we're discussing. For me, I'm grateful to have a strong wife that's like, when I'm feeling down, you know, can boost me up. Like, you know, when I'm thinking that I'm not as good as I am, like, no, you're doing good, and we do that for each other as well. So having somebody to say, hey, you know what, you're good enough.
Yes.
You're doing a good job, you know, and thank you for doing the job that you're doing. That goes a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I really resonated with Mr. Simmons once again. Just being around those other people of those like-minded and learning from them. Man, it is so key to be around educated men, educated people, period, and being able to just learn from them and grow. Like everybody's saying, similar to this position that we have right now. And honestly, by just some of the things that he said, I'm starting to pick up on him to know that he's going through some of the same things that I'm going through, but at the same time, he's here. You're here, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
That's right. So this is a good segue. We're gonna take the first question from our wives, and they're representing the women of Mississippi Boulevard and what they're saying. And before we do that, I think it's only right because we are the lesser half of our spouses and our houses. So I'm gonna say a huge shout out to my wife Shahira Cookie. Bobby, you wanna do that for yours?
A shout out to my cutie Chandra Rousseau.
Yeah.
Big up to Bridget.
More power to Cheryl.
My love, my heart, my rib, Jessica.
Oh, that's it right there. So, all right. So my wife has packaged these questions in this wonderful envelope designed wifey questions. So we're gonna pull one out here, and let's see what we got. None of us.
We did not look at those questions.
Yeah, we don't know what they're gonna ask. So let's see what they got.
That's a long one.
Man, it's a long question.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Like a book.
Okay.
Section 1.
All right. So, what do you? Oh, this is a whopper. What do you see as today's black man's biggest challenge to being a successful leader in his household? What do you see as today's black man's biggest challenge to being a successful leader in his household?
Media.
I like that.
I think media on both ways. On terms of TV, radio. You got podcasts, all your social media, the different type of message that gets sent, and the way, especially us black men, the way a lot of time we get portrayed. It's not a good light. A lot of time the negative stuff get more coverage than the positive stuff that a lot of black men are doing.
So my answer is gonna be similar to that, and it's time, man. I think as men, we all want to do so much for our families and so much within our household, but one of the real things that hinders us sometimes is time. So being able to really affirm our wives or spend time with our children, go to football games, basketball games, and being in those sports activities, man, I think really it's time, because it seems like we're here. We want to do it, but it's always those resources.
I would even say bad theology, right? We've been taught this hierarchy that says God, family, and everything else, work, all that, and I think that puts family even in competition with God, and that's a battle nobody can ever win. And what I think helps to give credence to the leadership of the man in the household is to understand one of the ways that I honor and love God is how I love, lead, and care for my spouse and my children. And so I think that theological basis that doesn't put family in competition with God, but allows us to express our love for God as we display it and show it to our wives and to our family. I think that helps for me to give strength to leadership in the household.
I totally agree. Bobby?
I'm just in awe. Believe it or not, growing up, in the 50s, 60s, and things like that, we were taught just like God, family. Yeah. And like you said, bad theology led you to believe that, hey, as long as this is happy, everything is good, and, everybody's fed and all that, there should be no issue. You're taking care of the business. But to hear the way you put it, gave me even right now at this point in life a different view on how I should address these things. You know.
Wow.
So that's good. I have
And
nothing
I'm
more.
humble. I'm humble.
You know, to my answer to that question, you know, you know, from a barrier standpoint, and I guess I'll kind of flip it to say, if this doesn't happen, it's a threat to the house, to your leadership of the household, and that is you have to concentrate on loving your wife. And I say that because if you have children in your household, I think I figured out that if they see that you love and respect and cherish their mom, like the rest of it is going to follow and work out. And I think that, and you do need to, obviously you got to support the kids and be there for them, but I think that you have to know that the foundation is the bond between you and your wife.
Right.
And if your kids don't see that bond,
Yeah.
then it's gonna spin them off a little bit.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, you know, focus on the kids, but not so much on every turn to where you don't have a date night or when you don't have that time
Date night.
to make sure that you like this with your wife, because if you love each other, you're gonna love those kids.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that's the biggest threat.
If I could just piggyback on that, Ephesians 5, right? It has the S word in it that lots of sisters hate. Wives submit, right,
Yeah.
to your husband, so forth and so on. When you get to verse 25, it says, husbands, love your wives. And that to me, as Christ loved the church, that for me has grounded that relationship you're talking about. That if you love your wife like Christ loved the church,
Man.
Should be
that to
the way
me ought to speak to headship, leadership in the house.
That's right.
And a key point too, you mentioned date night. Every Friday night is a date night for me, no matter what. You call
Same
me
here.
business-wise, you better talk to the wife there because it's date night there. And showing her that you would take, no matter how your day is, corporate world or whatever, I'm going to take this particular day, ours is Friday, and dedicate totally to you. Whatever you want to do, however you want to do, at what time you want to do it.
That's right.
It's all yours.
Teach us. Teach us.
What you
See,
want.
that's why he's married 42 years.
And stay married,
That's
right?
right. You know, they say the key to a man's heart is the stomach, but you know, women got to get good food too.
Very much so.
Or else it may not work out for any of us. So you got to make sure that they have.
But one thing I want to follow up to Pastor Turner, there's a scripture that says also, if you don't love your wife, you know, your prayers mean nothing to God.
Wow.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, that scripture don't discuss a whole lot in church. But you know, the blessing of a man also tied up to how he loved
Treat his
Man,
wife.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. You see
That's right.
I
somebody.
want to hinder that prayer.
That's right. All right. So that really good, serious, thick topics that we just discussed. But we're in a barbershop. This is the Boulevard shop, in a barbershop. But let's kind of throw a barbershop question in here. And yeah, we talk about these things when we're, you know, all alone in our own sanctuary. It's the barbershop. But we gotta have a sports discussion here.
You gotta
And
have-
we have not, you know, full disclosure, the five of us have not had this discussion before. So, you know, if we get upset, that's what
happens in the barbershop.
All right, so let's go with the first
But
one.
we still family.
We still friends.
Okay.
That's right. We're
We're gonna be friends when we leave here, right?
We're friends when we leave here. So let's do the first thing. Who is the best basketball player of all time?
Look at
We
your
all
shoes.
agree. Yeah, we all agree.
Ain't no debate.
We all agree.
Ain't no debate.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna throw some controversy in. I know I got
Okay.
the Jordans on, Pastor got the Jordans on too, but I'm gonna throw a little bit of controversy in. Okay. From my standard, Jordan is the greatest basketball player,
Okay.
but the best basketball player is LeBron James. And I say that because it's like, I could go to rappers. I think Jay-Z is the greatest rapper, but I think Nas is the best rapper. So that's just, you know, does it resonate? Because I feel
Yeah.
like LeBron is a better basketball player. He's just not greater than Jordan.
Yeah, I grew up in the Jordan era, you know.
Yeah, same here.
So no doubt, he's to me is going to be the greatest.
The GOAT.
I put LeBron up there with him because of what he has modeled at home
Oh yeah.
and what he has done in the community.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so he's got to be great, has to be somewhere associated with LeBron James.
Yeah. So to follow that, I get really upset because I got a lot of friends because they Jordan fans like we are, but they just hate LeBron, just can't stand him, and that's fine. But he really is a national treasure for the black community.
Yeah.
You don't see somebody that young get picked to be the anointed one. He had no scandals, no issues.
None.
He speaks out when it's time to speak out. You know, he's a national treasure. So so we didn't get a whole lot of controversy out of this.
No, you won't.
Jordan was great, but we got LeBron. Nobody said Kobe. Kobe's
I mean, Kobe's up there. I mean, everybody.
It's number 3.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
Whoa.
Now we
LeBron is still progressing, and I think Kobe, rest in power.
That's right. Rest in power to
Yeah,
Kobe.
he is.
Another national
He
treasure.
has his legacy. I mean, Kobe, one of the greatest franchises. Period.
Period.
Yep.
Period. When you,
Yeah.
across all sports, Kobe was at that elite level for the Lakers, bringing 5 championships, doing it alongside Shaq. I mean, it's hard to just put LeBron over that. Jordan, yes, Jordan's the
Okay.
greatest.
All right, we good then. Yeah.
But,
I mean,
just to go ahead.
Do we have a Laker fan over here? Is this a Laker
By
fan?
no means. By no means. I respect greatness.
Well,
Respect greatness.
and you saw Kobe as the great player that you watched coming up, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's the right. I mean, it's the right thing. I mean, Kobe. At the end of the day, you know, Jordan. I think we laud for what he did on the court. You know, and now, you know, he's at his age, he's doing things off the court as well.
But let me tell you.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of things Jordan does. A lot of things that he just don't brag about it.
Okay, that's a good
And
point.
that's another achievement that Jordan achieved that people don't want to give credit to him. When he built that brand, that's a very, very, very hard achievement. People don't on the world of business. When you build a brand and the brand becomes the pinnacle of all shoes, that's not something that's easy. And second, when he had that partnership with Nike, a lot of black executive was not there at Nike. Jordan bring a lot of black executive, which opened doors for a lot of people that wanted to do to be successful in the business world. He gave a lot of money to the community. He just don't brag about it. And the reason how I know that, because again, we had argument with friends, and you go and research. He gave stuff. He gave money, but he just don't talk about it.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Don't overlook Magic Johnson.
As well.
Following
That's
that
true.
line.
Yeah.
That's true, and that is a good point, you know. And I think for all of us too, we love our sports heroes. We in particular love our sports heroes that take a risk in the middle of their, you know, their greatness. You know what I mean? To do it. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar might be,
Yeah,
in Muhammad
he's
Ali,
one
the
too.
pinnacle of that.
Yeah.
Taking a risk in the middle of your greatness. Okay, so we got to a little bit of controversy. Because Terrance wasn't feeling the LeBron over the Kobe thing, rest in power. Kobe's a national treasure too. because
Nah, don't bring football. You're gonna bring Pastor in.
you know, football.
It's not a real debate there.
Football is
Not
tough.
at all.
Well,
Because you don't have a discussion there.
football is
It's
tough.
depending what
because-
position.
Yeah. Okay. So
Everything.
what you do? Who do you think the greatest football player is?
Greatest football player?
Yeah.
Prime time. Prime
Okay.
time Deion Sanders.
We're gonna get a lot of different answers.
I mean, just call it what it is. He's prime time Deion Sanders for a reason. Shoot.
Okay, Pastor. I see the look in your face. What you got?
Go for it. Go for it. I don't mean to cut past out. Go for it.
TV12, man.
What's the name?
Tom Brady.
After this season, that's hard not to say.
I disagree with his politics, but
They ain't got nothing to do with throwing the football.
yeah, he's the real deal. I think we got some people coming along behind him that might hopefully go the distance, but people typically quarterbacks are able to play a whole lot longer than your running backs. Like I think Derrick Henry is going to be one of the greats to play at that position.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you there.
But you know, I don't know if he'll make it to the conversation being the greatest of all time.
You know, mine's gonna be just as controversial as Terrance's. Mine would probably be like, because he didn't really, well, I can't say that because he didn't accomplish anything. He didn't win any championships. I'm a big Barry Sanders
Barry
fan.
Sanders.
But he didn't win. You know, he packed it up
But he
before
carried
he
the
got to
team.
that point. But he carried the team. I do think that at this stage, if you don't think that Tom Brady is off accomplishments the greatest player, but let's kind of put this back into, do we all believe that the greatest boxer is Muhammad Ali?
Yeah,
No question.
Yeah.
No
Okay.
question.
All right, so that's the core. We'll
Yeah,
end the
we can
sports
agree on
discussion
that.
Right
on
there.
that. I found a safe subject for us to agree on. Okay. All right, so the question that we answered from the wives was about being successful in your home. And this one is one of my favorite topics right now because it's a topic that challenges us the most as black men right now. And I think can make some of us even feel threatened if we're being honest, which I think is, there can be growth in that. You know, when there's things that you gotta onboard that's new and growing, you gotta onboard that for growth. But the question is the traditional role of the black man changing? If so, how can we adapt so that we thrive along with our household and people? And I'm actually going to that question is so like the one we just answered. I'm gonna go back to the one that I was intended to answer. So let me back up. This is the question that I wanted us to discuss. As men, how do we support the emerging crop of dynamic black women leaders? As black men, how do we do that? And to give it some framing, when you look at the civil rights movement, black women, it would not have happened without black
Without black
women.
women.
Yes.
But they didn't get a whole lot of the same accolades that the men got. And if you want to equate it to like a battle, like somebody has to be the shield so somebody can swing the sword.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like in the civil rights movement, but the shield is far less heralded.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and the black women in that era and before were our shields, and the men kind of swung, you know, those swords and did the battling out. And it seems like that pendulum is kind of going the other way. And as black men, do we need to start saying to ourselves, we need to be the shield because we got a Kamala Harris, we got a Stacey Abrams, you know, in any church community, any community, our women are leading and doing powerful stuff. I mean, they're just taking off. But as black men, how do we provide the protection that they need and to keep ourselves in place so that they can be out front and maybe we kind of take the background a little bit?
Well,
Two things, I think. First, you show them that you're not in competition with them.
Yeah.
You're there to support
Ooh.
them.
Definitely.
Okay. You let them know that you respect what they're doing, and in a lot of cases, what they're doing is probably a little higher than what you may have, you know, in yourself hoped to achieve. So you let them know that you're not in competition. You're there to support them. Okay. And in that support, you got to be willing to accept, you know, a lesser role. Not saying that you're a lesser man, but there are things that they will stand out front and be able to do, like Kamala, you know, as the vice president.
Yes.
Okay. There's no other role that I think a husband could take that would overtake that. So you'll have to step back and realize that I'm going to enjoy the glory of this, you know, because it is a glory when your wife can get out front
Yes.
and do those type of things. There, you got to support her. You got to let her know that I'm not in competition with you. I am your partner. I am going to do everything in the world to support you.
Yeah.
With no doubt in my mind that together we're going to make some great music. Now let it flow.
Yep.
I love that. Just being married, to hear him say support, encourage, and use those type of terms, man, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think one of the keys there is to being able to listen. Sometimes, you guys know, as men, we're very strong-minded. And when we hear alternative ideas, we tend to shy away from those sometimes. But I think it's more so being able to listen and being able to allow someone else's, another woman's light to shine in a sort of way. And I don't think it's more so a lesser role. It's just different.
Yep.
We've asked them to take on these different roles for many
Yeah.
years. Maybe it's our turn to just step back out of the spotlight and allow their light to shine.
Yeah, I think we have adopted the colonizers' mindset, and the way they've treated their women, we've thought to be successful, we have to do the same. And I think if we could trace back our history, there were not only black kings in Africa, there were queens as well, and men who supported their rule. And so my thing is support black women, defend black women, affirm black women, and be secure in who you are as a man.
Exactly.
And if you're secure in who you are, you know, it shouldn't hurt you or that a sister's getting some shine and leading the way.
That's right.
Well, to add, because that's what I wanted to say was, I mean, from beginning of time, our black women been leading. We just don't recognize that. We don't celebrate it. From a historical standpoint, if you look at Queen Nandi, which is the mother of Shaka Zulu, and the reason I know that story is because I named my daughter Nandi. As long Queen Nandi was alive, the British Army couldn't defeat the Zulu nation. They only did that after 30 years after she passed out. I mean, the mom passed away. And also from the Haitian Revolution, that revolution started from a black man with a black woman to help Haiti become the first independent country, the first black nation to gain their independence, not to beg for it, but literally fight and deliver all the black people that was in slavery. Then in addition to that, went on to other countries and help other people from slavery. So black women been doing it from a long time. It's just they have not been celebrated, have not been recognized. Now with all the opportunity that's afforded black women, they're taking advantage of that. They're leading on degree seeking. Black women get the most degree than any nationalities. That's a fact. They're getting a lot of degrees, the bachelor's, the master's, the PhD. When you say support, my wife just completed her doctorate, so that was like a 6-year cheerleading, support, do a lot of things by yourself, because hey, you know what she's trying to accomplish, you have to let her do what she needed, and it was not an easy process at all, being a mom, a professional, being a student, and being a leader in the church. So every other facet that she's leading, she still maintains those while she's still pursuing of getting her doctoral degree. So,
well, and that is not the great part about that is an amazing story, and we see that with so many black women now. And I think that, you know, as men, we kind of took the point that you were talking about, how we adopted a mindset that maybe not was great for us. But if we were to go back and were able to talk to Martin Luther King in 1964, 98% of what he was doing in his household and 99% is going to reflect what we thought we supposed to do in our household now. But our wives can't go back and talk to Coretta Scott King and have that same alignment. Like their role has progressed and changed from that. And so we have to recognize that if that, you know, Coretta was the shield and kind of held him down to be able to do what he did, and now that women have come to the forefront, well, we can't be just as loud as Martin was while Coretta's out front.
Right.
So, you know, like we have to deal with that. And then I think, you know, my wife is a director at a Fortune 500 company. I hear her on calls. I hear myself on these calls. And I have to remember that you are seeing a mother, to Andy's point, a wife, someone that goes to work with the same sense of not belonging that we have, and to do all of that. And it's a harder transition to be a nurturer and then be a boss than it is from what we do. So we just have to make sure that we're prepared. You know, I liken it. We got to be maybe our wife's secret service now. But we don't. They don't see us as much, but we in the background. Like, don't touch her. You know, don't mess with her. Right. You'll see me come out for this stage if you touch her. But I want her to be out front and get the shine, and we gotta adopt that mindset.
Yes.
All right. We gotta. Speaking of that, Tom.
But I think also one thing we got to do that for our daughters as well.
Absolutely.
And the other young ladies in our community, we have to support them. So.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And if we model that, you're so right, Andy. Okay. Let's get another. Speaking of the wives, let's see. what we got here for the next question.
It's another long one.
Oh yeah, these are not
Two-part.
softball questions. Let's see. Why do you think black men are categorized as unemotional? How can black men do a better job of being emotionally intelligent?
Wow.
We might sit on them for a minute.
I wouldn't say we are unemotional. It's about where and how we express our emotion, right? And so I think, I give my wife credit because just creating that safe space where, whatever way I process it, just having the space to do that, right? But I don't think we are unemotional. We express it, but maybe not when and where and how many people think we should.
I don't think we are. Sometimes we do that for the greater cause. Like, for example, on your job, you're being abused. When I say abused, mistreated.
Oh yeah.
But the fact that you have a family, kids, bills to pay for, it's certain things you just let glide. For me, I'm not that type. I express my emotions. So it is what it is. Because I'm not going to be sitting there and let you mistreat me, thinking that you're greater than I am or I'm inferior. So that's not going to fly with me.
That's right.
Well, I think there's actually an issue there because the question would not have been generated if they did not feel as if we're not showing that emotion.
Wow.
So what we're doing now in the discussions that we're having here, you're looking at it from a male perspective. Come back on the other side. The reason they would ask that question is because there's something that happened at the time or during a discussion or doing some activity that they felt you should have shown some emotion wherein you didn't. And being a man, that was one of the things as a man growing up, in the later years, the 50s and all that. You don't show emotion. That's one of the things that they talk. Don't be
Why
a
you crying
girl.
for?
Yeah. So they
Throw some dirt
taught
on
us as we were growing up not to show emotion. And that in itself, especially for us older guys, it could create a problem if you don't recognize that teaching was wrong. That teaching is dead wrong. You must show emotion, no matter what it is. I bet you get the biggest hug right now if you start crying to your wife, If you feel as she feels, when she feels, oh man, life is good.
Yeah.
Teach
Life
us.
is good.
This is why Bobby is the elder statesman. I've learned several things. Even like it was golden what he said. Now we looking at it from our perspective.
Yeah.
We gotta look at this flip question.
Right.
Yeah,
The question would not have been generated if
Yeah.
someone didn't actually felt that way.
I think too that as men from time to time, if we feel like, man, this just don't go my way, you just shut down and stop talking about it.
Oh
You know
boy,
what
that's
I mean?
bad.
It's like, man, and whatever. Like apathy is the best protection to not getting your way all the time. I just ain't gonna work. Like I'm just not gonna engage. I'm just
Yeah, I'm a
gonna go.
man. I ain't doing that.
Right, and whatever you want to do is fine with me. You know what I mean? And we all said we've all said that to your wife. Like whatever you want to do is cool. And I'm fine with that. Which may
Honestly,
not
I
be
think
true.
it's wisdom, man. When you say that, that sounds like wisdom, man. But in all honesty, it's knowing when to show those emotions.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about a person or a man being level-headed in a time where there are high emotions and low emotions, and to stay even keeled. And once again, your family is looking to you for exactly that.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm with Pat. I don't think it's unemotion. It's just a different emotion in the way that we express it. It's just a little bit different.
To make sure that we get the wives' question, let's field one more, and then we'll return back to the last subject for us. Okay. Man.
Oh wow.
Oh, everybody laughing.
6-part series.
That's a small book.
Go ahead.
Lay it on us. Just lay it on us.
All right, let me. Okay.
You got it?
Why? Yeah. Why marriage? So many couples choose to shack and opt for a non-traditional form of commitment. Marriage is just a piece of paper and can't define my love perspective. What advice would you impart to a black man who doesn't subscribe to making a spiritual commitment to marriage and does not view it as significant to professing his love for a woman? What is the importance in making that journey down the aisle? As I was reading it, first thing I thought was marriage, at least for me, is a spiritual concept anyway. So if he ain't spiritual, you don't need to be asking him.
True.
He can't understand it.
No.
You know, it's just what Pastor said. You got to lay down your life and love as Christ loved the church.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you know, I tell any woman, young woman, you know, whatever age, if he don't want to get married, you got your answer. You know.
Yeah, I go back to commitment, man. Got married, and all I can think about is commitment. That's the difference between, I guess, some of the men that are single. You're not singled until you put on the paper that you're married. So, and that goes back to how it's perceived legally as well as spiritually. Man, then you have a thing such as common law marriage and all these other things. But if you're not connected with that person through marriage or with your spouse via marriage, you're missing out. You're just missing out.
I think it's a fear. I mean, for like a lot of times people don't want to commit because it's easier for you if you're not married. You just either pick up and go. There's no need to go to a divorce process. There's no need to go to separation process. You just there's no stake in the ground. You just get up and go and move on to the next. So I think that's the one thing a lot of times people don't want to do. Is committed to each other.
I put it this way. It's illogical to begin to inhabit a house that has been built without getting your certificate of occupancy.
Wow.
And so that's cohabitation without certification, right? And marriage, one, you want to honor God, and if that brother doesn't understand that concept, he obviously doesn't have fear or respect for God and doesn't really have love for you enough that he's willing to commit to you in the presence of God and of however many witnesses you have that you all are in a lifelong covenant with each other. So I'm a strong proponent for marriage. I maybe it's because I'm a preacher, I just don't understand why a brother wouldn't want that commitment and to experience the wonderful journey of building a life together with a woman that you love.
So to follow that was amazingly insightful, Pastor.
Yeah.
But to follow that, certificate of occupancy.
That's
to-
deep.
Whole new
it's
phrase.
very deep. But you know, I have to on that front too. You got to put some responsibility back on a woman on this one too, though, because you know women cannot reward certain forms of masculinity.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you still, you know, having sex and keeping the guy in the house and paying for certain things or whatever it is, and he's not doing that, at the end of the day, we all know that a man is going to do what's necessary to get the woman he wants. And if we had a different concept, you know, if our women would just say, I'm not rewarding that, men are gonna change. Like I can tell you that
Exactly.
right now, like, you know, even with my son, who's now reaching the age 14, 15, where he wants to talk to girls and that kind of thing. And if a girl says, oh, I like you, and maybe gives him a number, he gonna think, okay, that's it, you know. But at the same time, if the girl says that he likes, this is what you gotta do. Like, you gotta do this, you gotta carry my books, you gotta do that, you gotta do that. If you like me, he's going to do that. So that's part of the problem we got in our community is I don't think we need to have a education to our women that you actually don't have to. He's chasing you. You don't have to reward that. You know, and if all women today, and I know I'm oversimplification, young girls said I'm not going to reward somebody that's out in the street doing this, doing that, doing this. You got to have an education to do that. In a short period of time, guys are gonna start getting education. And it ain't gonna be because they want the education.
Exactly.
It's gonna be because that's what you got to go through to get that work.
Yep.
Yep.
But one thing, I mean, that question was the marriage is just a certificate. I mean, the marriage certificate is just a piece of paper. And I was laughing because there's no Chandra right now. We have several conversations on that. That piece of paper has power. It has power. It speaks volume. Once you're married, both sides, the husband has certain rights, legal rights, and the wife has certain legal rights. So when you're a wife, legally, you second in command. I say, you know, when you come, if your husband not able to perform for the family, though, you're second in command by the fact that, hey, I have this certificate. You know, and also everything that he has is yours, and vice versa. Whatever the woman has, that's the husband. So that paper has weight. It's just like when you buy a car, you have what? You have a title. You buy a house, you have a deed to your house. So legal paper has value.
Yes. Absolutely right. To go back to the certificate all over again. It has that value. Okay, we got one last question left, and I'm gonna reterm this because we kind of answered it in different ways. But you know, the question says, is the traditional role of the black man changing, and how can we adapt so that we thrive along with our household and people? We've kind of answered that, but maybe we should reterm it as, what do we see as the future for us? You know, I get concerned all the time because when I see our daughter, who's Kiki's 22, CJ's 15, and when she goes out and when she's been in college, it's a bunch of young women, very few, and that was even true, I think, when a lot of us went to school. There's always way more, and it feels like we are heading to a place where a lot of our young women are going to have a hard time finding somebody, and so they kind of are being forced to fend for themselves at the same time that black men are being killed and just reviled. You know, how do we as men contend with that? And that's a loaded question. So there's so much, but how do we contend with that bleak outlook, but on the man side, that our women are going in the right direction way more than we are?
I think we got to acknowledge when you ask that question, there are a considerable amount of African American men who are incarcerated, right, in the criminal justice system, and whether that is in the system or they're trying to re-enter society. I think it's about also reevaluating what we term as a viable mate, right? I mean, if you're looking for a pro ball player or even CEO of a Fortune 500, not a whole lot of brothers at that level, but there are hard-working men, right, who have Christian values. And so it might not look like Du Bois' talented 10th that they have to choose from, but I think there are some solid men who would make good husbands that I think need to be given a shot, that, you know, would possibly bridge that divide while there's so many single sisters, you know, with the men that we have. So that's just my thought. Everybody's not going to be the six-figure brother. But just because the brother doesn't have an office, you know, he might drive a truck and bring home $75,000. Does that make him less than
The
that
engineer
brother?
who does it.
That's good money.
And like Andy said earlier on about the media, you know, it plays a part in such a way that it makes our young people,
Yes.
male and female, not see what you just said, you know. just because I'm not a basketball star or whatever, doesn't mean I'm not a good provider.
Yes.
That I could take care of you, that I can make you happy
Yes.
throughout life and all that. So I think what we as men need to do is to start working not only with our young male, but our young female, and let them understand that what you always see here on television is not real life.
Right.
Okay. So the six-figure, yeah, you can get that.
Yeah.
But it requires work. Okay. Everybody that you see on television doing this, that, or whatever, if you go behind the scene, you realize that it's just a prop. They really don't own any of that stuff. they only are in it for that particular moment.
It's truly a prop.
So yeah, you got to help them to understand that, you know, all that shine or all that glitter is not gold.
Yeah.
And once you start explaining to them about real life, I'm a girl dad, 2 of them. I said, you're a queen. And any man that takes your hand will have to treat you as such. And if you treat her as such as you're growing up, as they're growing up, they would expect such.
Yeah.
Well, this is the way my dad, you know, treated me, so I'm expecting you to do the same.
Yeah.
And my nephews and things like that, I said, okay, the woman's a queen. This is what you have to do.
Yes.
You can't just go up and expect to, you know, have your way or say whatever you want to say or do this. You got to do that mutual respect thing. And you got to understand that it takes the two showing that to each other to make this whole thing, you know, happen. But, you know, the media thing, and I hate to just point on the media because that's not, you know, the catch-all.
Yeah.
But because
Well,
you
people,
are
but
it's
exposed to
powerful.
it, you know, that's why we need, as men, as parent,
Yes.
as godly people, you know, to come in and help them to understand that all that's glittered is not gold.
But I mean, when we talk about the media, it said we got a lot of broken home, but that's not true. We have a lot of double home. I mean, in the black community, we always have. I mean, can it be greater? Yeah, but typically, every black person you meet is they all not coming from a single,
That's true.
so-called
Right.
single,
right.
single home. So, but a lot of stuff don't talk about it. The other thing talk about, well, the dad is not there. That's not true. Black men spend a lot of time with their kids. It's not discussed. It's preferred to show, you know, the ones that's commit the crime. So it's stuff like that that need to be shown a whole lot more than so people can see.
To your point about media, you can't criminalize us if you show us with our kids and with our wives and that sort of thing, you know. So if you show that too much, people's, you know, perspective starts to change. So it goes back to the power of those images that we see on TV all the time to that degree. Yeah. Yeah.
And then for me, I think it goes back to, it's not just necessarily media, but it's also seeing this is over time.
Yes.
You're constantly seeing the same thing over time. I mean, you brought up the point about these single parent households, where most of them are actually women who are leading those households. And I grew up in one, and what I saw over time was that the woman is to work hard, but she doesn't necessarily need that male. She doesn't need that man in order to provide for her family and to bring this. But I think it's more so us changing the narrative now. Now that we're in 2021, we can start to really change that narrative and allow our men and our young women to see that, man, there's a different world out there. There's a different world.
Yeah, totally agree. So we got one last question, because this is the Boulevard Shop, but we got to remember this is a One Love, you know, married ministry production. So we're going to, out of a union, we're going to answer one last question from our wives, and that'll take us on out for the day. So let's see what we got.
Another book.
All right. Okay, so we got no marriage is perfect, just like no person is perfect. How do you handle conflict, tension, or disagreement in your marriage? while still maintaining a healthy, strong, uninhibited relationship with your spouse?
Communication.
Big time.
I'm young into the game. I've been married for 3 years. Still learning how to do this, but the more I learn to communicate, and we've already spoke on it, but emotions and learning to emote and show those emotions to your spouse, man, is huge. Huge.
Listen to understand and not just hear. Okay. Understand what's being said. And you'll, once you do that, you'll start to feel why it's being said. Don't look to be one of those that you just hear something and that's all you're doing is hearing so you can respond. And I throw left, you throw right. Now, why did you throw the left? Okay, is there a reason behind that left coming my way? So listen to truly understand why the question or the action is being taken.
Yep.
I would just say, make sure home is a safe space for both spouses to voice what might be a fear or frustration, or a glimpse into the future. I think that's a key piece, making sure home is a safe environment.
I think it got to be, you have to have an agreement for open, honest discussion. Sometimes stuff needs to be said and don't get caught up in the emotion and the feeling, but because it needs to be said. If there's an issue that needs to be addressed, that person should be able to address it with their emotion, their feeling, would not have to feel that they're going to be criticized. Second will be making what I call positive deposit. So make more deposits in the marriage than you make in withdrawal, because if you do more withdrawal out of it, eventually going bankrupt.
Yeah,
So.
man.
He got that Bobby Simmons with him.
From all the way.
Man, that's powerful. I would say, my answer to that question is, I grew up, my parents, bless them both, still doing well, married 51 years this year. And I'm a lot like my father, but my father's a different person than me. My mom's a different person than my wife. So I may think that based on what I saw, that, that's the way I should respond, because that's the way I saw my father respond to my mom. But I actually need to unlearn that, because I ain't married to my mom.
Quickly.
So let me.
You got cookie.
Yeah, exactly. I got cookie. That's who I got, and I'm blessed to have her every day of my life. But I had to learn. The relation, it's great that they were married that long and that they have such a healthy relationship, but that's their relationship. And while I can model the things that I saw my father do that were great, and the things that I know that just work, their interactions are not always going to follow mine. So I had to learn that just because they had a successful marriage and that's the way I think I should respond, I got to respond based on, my marriage. And you got to be thoughtful about what you modeling, and what, and are you really being specific to your situation?
Exactly.
And once I started kind of figuring that out, I was like, it's my job to set the right tone. And then going back to what you said about being a spiritual leader, how can you be the spiritual leader if you can't set calmness over disagreement? And I had to really, really challenge myself in that one and say, I got to take this on, because if I'm going to believe that I'm the spiritual person that's supposed to be the spiritual head of the house, then the atmosphere of the house is my responsibility, which means if I got to bring myself down, that's what I need to do, so that's what I would say. All right. Well, I think that we have answered all the questions that the wives have given. And I think that it would only be right for us to tell our wives, we really appreciate the support. And that's what we're going back to today, which is being the stability and affirmation of our home. It's been great to be in a place where we were not behind enemy lines today. This is our home base. This is our fortress, our own place to launch from. But with that being said, we do appreciate everybody for tuning in to the Boulevard Shop. and there will be more to come from the One Love Marriage Ministry. And Pastor, you want to bless us out with a prayer?
Yeah, well, before I pray, shout out to our Boulevard media team who's always on point. And we're grateful for a Closer Look Barbershop, letting us come in here in Collierville, looking for a barber, consistent, drop in a closer look out here in Collierville on Byhalia Road. Well, let's pray. God, we thank you for an opportunity to have honest and transparent dialogue of what it means not only to be a man or a black man, but a Christian man. And God, I pray that you might bless all of these brothers who have taken up their time to share in this conversation. Bless their households and all things concerning them. And I pray, God, for those who might be viewing, whose marriages might be at the brink of a breakdown, that they, oh Lord God, might seek your face. I pray for that couple discerning whether or not they're going to take the next step of engagement towards marriage, that they would seek you, and that as they seek you, you would direct their paths. We pray, God, that you might continue to work in all of our lives, that we might be the salt of the earth, that we might let our light so shine that others will see our good works. But you get the glory out of our lives and out of our marriages and out of our families. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Amen. My man.
All right.